Hello, this is the lesson for chapter 3, lesson 5, which is adding and subtracting rational numbers. What we're looking at today is basically adding and subtracting like fractions. So, last two classes we were looking at multiplying and dividing fractions. Now we're going to look at adding and subtracting fractions. So let's review the rules for adding subtractions, okay? If I had a fraction of um, a over b plus c over b, and b means I have the same number in the denominator, then I would work this out as a plus c over b. That would be how I'd work it out. So for example, if I have 3 over 10 plus 2 over 10, then I would add the numerator and keep the denominator the same. 3/10 plus 2/10 would be 5/10. So let's talk about if we have a negative number, because now we're going to look at fractions where there are negative numbers. So let's say we have 3/10 plus negative 2/10. So when we're working this out, we can look at this as 3 plus negative 2 over 10, since my denominator is the same. And then I would just work out the numerator, bringing that negative into the numerator, adding them as 3 plus negative 2. And so this is where you have to recall those rules for negative numbers. 3 plus negative 2 is positive 1. And so it's positive 1 over 10, and that's your answer. So let's do a few practices. And here's some examples that show you what you're doing here. 5 over 12 plus 9 over 12, you just add up the numerators, and that would be 14 over 12. And don't forget to write it as a mixed number if you can, and simplify it if you can. So down here, we've got 3/8 plus negative 7/8. 3 plus negative 7 is negative 4, so it's negative 4/8. And then we want to simplify this as negative 1/2. Example 3 is looking at mixed numbers and adding those. The nice thing with adding mixed numbers is that you can just add the wholes separately and then bring them back into your fraction. So you could do 1 plus 3, and that would be 4 wholes. And then you have 2 plus 4. So add your numerators, 2 plus 4 over 9. And then that would be 6 over 9. And you could simplify this as 2/3, and so your answer would be 4 2/3. So let's do a few of these. I'm going to pick out just a few. Maybe we'll do this column here: 1, 4, 7, and 10. Okay. So number 1, 11 plus 9 is 20, and so that would be 20 over 12. So there's two things you can do. First thing is you can simplify, and you can also make it a mixed number. So this would be 10, this would be 6, dividing by 2, right? And then I could divide even more, and this would be 5, and this would be 3. So this would be 1 2/3 once I've turned it into a mixed number, because it's 5/3 written as 1 2/3. Number 4, so looking at this, I might just write my numerators on top: 4 plus negative 9 over 20. So this is where bringing that negative into the numerator might help you out a little more than in multiplication and division. So 4 plus negative 9 is negative 5. Negative 5 over 20, I can reduce this as 1/4. So the answer is negative 1/4. Okay, number 7. Oh, I've got some subtraction here. Where did that come from? Because we're supposed to do subtraction on the back. Anyway, 19 minus 17 is 2. So it's 2 over 20. And then that becomes 1. That becomes 10. So my answer is 1/10. Okay, now with some mixed numbers here. So what I have here is negative 6 and 7/12. Now, this negative goes into everything inside my fraction. So that means that my negative also belongs with, it's negative 6 wholes, but then I also have negative 7/12. So it's almost like I have negative 6 wholes plus negative 7/12. So if I had my pieces, right? I'm not going to draw them all out, but I had 7 pieces out of 12, and then I had 6 pieces, 6 wholes. All that together is negative. So when I'm doing this, you need to be careful that you keep the negative with the numerator, but you also keep the negative with the whole. So when I'm looking at this, I'm going to separate out my work, and I've got negative 6 plus negative 8, and that is also with plus negative 7/12 plus negative 11/12. So we're adding our wholes. Negative 6 plus negative 8 is negative 14. So I have negative 14. And then I've got negative 7 plus negative 11. That's negative 18. But because my negative belongs to this whole fraction, my answer is negative 14 and 18/12. When I see this negative, that means this goes into everything inside my fraction. Now, I've got to go one step further because 18/12 is an improper fraction, and I want to turn this into a mixed number. So I can bring another 1 whole over and make this 6/12, but 6/12 is 1/2, and so I can keep going, and this becomes negative 15 and 1/2. So that had a few steps, didn't it? All right, let's do another column. Why don't we do this whole column here, 3, 6, 9, and 12. You guys pause the video, work it out, and see if you can do those and check your answers. Okay, so I've worked these out. You can check your answers. I circled or boxed the answers here. You can pause the video and see if you got those right. Don't forget those negatives. So you've really got those rules, bringing this negative up to the numerator, working that out, bringing this negative up to the numerator, working that out also. So, okay, let's take a look at the back. Now we're looking at subtraction. So subtraction is the same rule. You're subtracting the numerators, and then the fractions have to have the same denominator for you to work that out. So let's do a column here. And before I do that, let's talk about what do we do when we have variables. So example 3 here tells us what to do when we have variables. If they're the same variable, you can combine the numbers still. So think of this as 5b's plus 3b's. How many b's will you have in total? Well, you would have 8b's. So 5b plus 3b equals 8b. And so you can still write that, work those out, simplify it out. And here you have 5b plus 3b is 8b. 8b over 12, we can still look at this as a fraction we can simplify by simplifying just the numbers. And so 8 and 12 simplify to become 2 and 3 divisible by 4, right? So this becomes 2b over 3. So that's just something that's a little new. We'll do a few of these together and work these out. So we'll do 1, 4, 7, and 10, and then I'll let you loose and do your own, okay? So 19 minus 17, that would be 19 minus 17 over 20, which would be 2 over 20, and I simplify that, that becomes 1 over 10. Okay, and then 3 minus 5 over 7. So 3 minus 5 over 7. So remember the rule is to add the opposite when I'm subtracting with negatives. So add the opposite, so this becomes negative 2 over 7, and that's my answer. Here I've got 4c plus 2c, which is 6c over 8. And I can simplify. This is 2. No, this is 3. And this is 4. So it's 3c over 4 as my answer. Down here I've got 15m over 18. I'm adding the 2. And I can simplify this. This is 5 and this is 6. So it's 5m over 6 as my answer. All right, let's do a few more subtraction because some of these were addition. So let's do 2 and 5 as well. 2 and 5. So 23 minus 8 is 15 over 25. I can simplify this, divisible by 5, right? So that's 3 and that's 5. That becomes 3/5. Okay, 4 twelfths minus 7 twelfths. 4 minus 7. When I'm working this, I'm going to add the opposite because 4 is not big enough. Add the opposite, and that becomes negative 3 over 12. And I'm going to reduce 1, it becomes 1/4. So it's negative 1 over 4. All right, I'd like for you to do 8 and 11 and 3 and 6. All right, so pause the video and work that out. Okay, let's see how you did. Hopefully I did them right as well. If I did something wrong, you can send me a message or something. But I think I did 8, 11, 3, and 6. Be careful here. 8 minus 11 is negative 3x. And so I wrote an answer where it's negative 1x over 7. That's correct. But the better way of writing it is negative x over 7. So that's another way of writing your answer. Either one of those would work. So 11, you could have written negative 1t over 4 or just negative t over 4. Okay, our final little stretch here. We are going to plug in each variable and what they represent and work it out. And we've got some mixed numbers here. So we're going to work out subtracting mixed numbers. So number 13, a minus b. So a is 6 and 7 over 20 minus 3 and 11 over 20. So when I'm adding or subtracting, I can subtract just my whole numbers if also my numerators are big enough to subtract. Now here I've got 7 minus 11. So I think I'm going to borrow from my whole and make this 5 and 27 over 20 minus 3 and 11/20. Then now I have 27 minus 11, and that's big enough, and then 5 minus 3. So 5 minus 3 is 2, and then 27 minus 11 is 16. So it's 16 over 20. Now I can reduce. That's 4 and that's 5. So it's 2 and 4/5 as my answer. B minus A. So 3 and 11 over 20 minus 6 and 7 over 20th. So in this case, when you look at this, I already know that when I subtract, it's not going to be big enough. 3 minus 6 is not going to be big enough. So I think that as I'm doing this, 3 minus 6 is going to be a negative, right? And then I've got 11 minus 7 over 20th. Okay, so 3 minus 6 is going to be negative 3, and 11 minus 7 is 4 over 20. And so your answer is negative 3 and 4/20. But here's the thing. Let's take a pause from 14 and come back to this in a second, okay? C minus A. So 5 and 3 over 20 minus 6 and 7 over 20. Okay, so again, right here we've got 5 minus 6, which is too small, and 3 minus 7 is also too small. So we're going to make this as negative 1 and 4/20. Okay, B minus C. So 3 and 11 over 20 minus 5 and 3 over 20. Okay, so 11 minus 3 is 8. And so I've got negative 2 and 8 over 20. And so don't forget to reduce here, that this would be negative 3 and 1/5. This would become negative 1 and 1/5 also. And this would be negative 2 and 4, or 2/5. See, is that right? Okay,